This is TWiT.
I think, two words that I don't think most people thought would go together are artificial intelligence and the Beatles. So those were four words, but you know what I mean? Essentially, I want to talk about how the Beatles song Now and Then won a Grammy, and it is the first AI assisted track to do so. This won the best rock performance. It beat out, Pearl Jam, St. Vincent, Black Keys. So the critical thing here is, yes, it is an AI assisted track. It is not an AI generated track. These are, all the vocals are from the actual Beatles. It was essentially, AI was essentially used to clean up the track, separate John Lennon's voice from the piano that he was playing while he was recording this back in the day. The Beatles then later came back and added their own touch to this. And it has now won a Grammy. The reason this is interesting is because for the last 2 years, there have been a lot of conversations about what role, if any, AI should play when it comes to music, movies, art in general, right? And so this feels like a critical stepping stone. It feels like, okay, if an AI assisted track is eligible for a Grammy and wins said Grammy, despite, side note, a lot of people feeling like the song wasn't that good, but that's, to each their own. It's another topic, but
yeah, that's not our conversation here.
Yeah, exactly. So, if that is now a possibility, how will these guidelines potentially change as time goes on? Because AI isn't going anywhere. It's only going to get better, and people are only going to use it more and more, right? Creatives are going to find ways to tap into it. And so you have the conversations about fears about AI, taking over people's jobs, destroying creativity. But then you also have the more nuanced conversations about people using AI for things like brainstorming, or again, like, cleaning up a track or adding some type of vocal twist to something, or, filmmakers using it in post-production to like de-age actors, for example, or remove something from a shot that shouldn't have been there. And so, this is all timely because the US Copyright Office has also now said that AI tools that are used to assist in the creative process don't undermine the copyright of that work. And that's been a really big conversation. I think a lot of, authors in particular have been very concerned about this. And I still think it's a very real issue of AI kind of pulling from work without getting permission to do so. So I think slowly but surely we're getting more guidance on, what is okay and what is not. I think the road is very, very long ahead. I think we're still going to get a lot of back and forth about what creatives want, what industry executives want, what people in the tech industry want. There's just a lot of conflicting interests here. And it's just going to be so rapidly evolving. But I'm just very curious about how art will change, how art will be recognized with AI assistance, what lines we draw, and how we erase and rewrite those lines as we go forward. But it's always fascinating to hear how different, organizations and people feel about this. I mean, I think a lot of, we saw with the Hollywood strike, a lot of artists expressing concern about AI, and then now having situations where they're able to reach some sort of consensus where, for example, SAG-AFTRA, signing a deal that allows actors to let advertisers use their voice in an ad, but they are in control of that, right? They can say, I want to make money off of this and I have control over what ads use this. I think that's really the idea, is the control, right? And being able to still benefit off of your likeness and
Yes.
your work, right? And so I think we're seeing more of that. We're seeing, companies like Universal Music Group partnering with AI companies like Sound Labs and Clayvision, and just finding ways to allow for AI to exist, because it's not going to go away, but making sure it's done in a way where artists benefit. And let me just add, music executives also want to benefit off of this. They want to make sure they're getting a cut of all of this. But yeah, I think it's fascinating to see how this has evolved and will continue to evolve. But also would love to hear your thoughts about where you think this space is heading, and how you feel about kind of the increased use of AI that's undoubtedly going to happen.
Yeah. So this, of course, is like a multifaceted conversation. And I think my initial thought as it has always been, and I'm happy that I've remained consistent on this, is that regardless of how we feel about this thing, and as you've said yourself, it is here and it is going to continue to be here, and it is going to continue to evolve and do the things that it is expected to do in a way that improves upon how it's done them thus far. I hesitate to use the word it's going to get better, only because I think that better is as a subjective term. And so, for some people, it doing its job at higher quality than it does now is not better for them. But with all of that in mind, it makes me think of another thing that we see regularly, which is in grocery stores, you see different products labeling their products as non-GMO. And the push regarding genetically modified organisms and, them being good or bad. And I was recently, this is such a weird thing to say almost, but I was recently talking to a plant scientist, essentially, and someone who specifically works with plant genomes, who explained something to me that kind of blew my mind, which is that almost all of the foods that we regularly consume are not even, there's no GMO available option for those things anyway. GMOs are very specifically focused on certain oils, for example, and certain grains that are fed to animals. Okay. And the rules and laws that are in place don't allow for most things to have GMOs in them in the first place. And so brands that are putting that non-GMO tag on there are kind of like brands who put gluten-free on there on a product that there's no way it would have gluten on it in the first place. Yeah. And the same thing for no antibiotics used ever. The US government, as it currently stands, knock on wood, doesn't allow for antibiotics to be used in certain meats anyway. So them putting that on there is just sort of taking advantage of the fact. Yeah, like it doesn't, you're saying this, but you couldn't have done it even if you wanted to. So it's not as if there's some meat out there that has antibiotics being used, because you're not allowed to use them in this.
Right.
And so, and growth hormones too is another one. So, it turns out that it's certain like canola oils that we would ever come into contact with and use. That's where seeing non-GMO would actually matter.
Interesting.
But outside of that, like produce and those different things, that's not a thing that is happening in the first place. And it's not, he said, like the big thing is, even if we put on the cynical cap, he said it's not financially viable to be genetically modifying a bunch of different things. So it's not within anyone's interest to do so in the first place. Yeah. So anyway, all of that's to say that there's a lot of misunderstanding about GMO. And you see people like hyping this, and it's like, even in a world where we didn't have the non-GMO label, none of those things that you're eating would have been GMO in the first place. Yeah. So that kind of blows my mind a little bit. And that's that aside. Well, sort of that as a place to look. I wonder if we're going to see the same thing where we will have a no AI used label, and does that mean that in future awards, there will be AI assisted awards and non-AI assisted awards?
Yeah. What
does that look like if there is enough of a blowback from the artists that are creating versus what, the industry might want, and the people who have a voice and a say in these things? Yeah. I'm curious about that. I wonder, if that is going to be a factor, or if we get to a place where we realize this can be used as a tool, just like, Oog takes a stone and hits it against another stone and keeps hitting it until it's sort of in the shape of a circle.
Right.
And then I put it on my caveman fireplace above the fire, and I look at it and I think it's great. Not great, but I go over and I make a little tool, and suddenly I've got a chisel, and now I've got a perfect circle that I've got above my fireplace. And I have, are we going to have one where if you use a tool versus if you don't use a tool, let AI be a chisel, not the full entire creator of the thing, and, let the human run the system. And I think then it's okay. But who knows? Who knows, honestly?
Absolutely. I mean, it makes me think about AI labels on social media, which I think will be beneficial, right, with AI generated content. But I was thinking about this. This is a very specific example, but it might kind of illustrate kind of the bigger picture. But I've been playing with the Galaxy S25 this week, and there's a feature called generative edit, which lets you erase things in the background that you don't necessarily like. So, filmmakers are using AI tools to erase unwanted objects from shots. You can also use this on your phone to erase unwanted things from your shots. But there's also this thing called Photoshop that has been doing that for a very long time, right?
Yes, exactly.
So AI makes it easier to do something that has been done for a very long time. And I think the word AI, I think that label carries a stigma and carries a warranted fear of what this could mean for a lot of things, a lot of works of art, right? But I think sometimes you have to take a step back and realize, like, that's a very broad, category, right? AI can do a lot of things. It can do little things that help you tweak, what you're looking at and make your job easier. It can also completely create something that takes away the human element. And so there's such a broad spectrum here. So I think keeping that in mind of AI it can both help and hurt artists is basically what I mean by that. And so labels might be the way to go with some things, like, posts on social media. But when I use the generative edit tool on the Galaxy phones, there is now there's a label at the bottom, a disclaimer of every photo that I tweak with generative edit. If I erase anything from it, it'll say this is AI generated content. And in my head, I'm like, that's so annoying because
yes,
because I didn't generate any. I mean, you generated a background, but you didn't generate what I captured in that photo, right? So that's just an example of how there's so much nuance. And I think not having something blatantly just be if AI touches it at all, then it's been polluted. That's not really the way to go about it, I think.
Because let me tell you something that was in a small part ruined by that nonsense is our announcement of our engagement.
I remember this.
So I posted photos of our announcement of our engagement on social media, and I used Photoshop. There was one photo where the photographer had taken it and there wasn't enough of like a vertical to be able to display it in the same way that all the rest of the photos were displayed.
Yes.
And so I extended the canvas and used the tool to add some trees up above, or extend the trees. Yeah. That's something that Photoshop's been able to do for a long time. It's not just since the AI generated tools came along. But the people in the photo were very much real people and the situation was very much real and no one's face was changed or anything like that. And I posted these photos and then afterwards saw that Instagram had tagged them as having been created with AI.
Wild.
And there were multiple people who reached out to me saying, is this real? And I was like, no, I have to, it's very real. It's true. And it's very exciting. Be excited.
Of all posts too. It's just cold.
Yeah. Of all the posts. Yes. Because I'm sure that I've posted something on Instagram before up to that point that I had used Photoshop to do, but
for sure.
Adobe had introduced that new watermarking, virtual or digital watermarking thing. And that, the thing that bothered me about it was I didn't have the ability to turn it off. Right. Instagram had, with its tools at the time, had and I don't know what the current state of things is, but the policy was if its AI detected human beings in the photo and then detected via this digital watermark that AI was used, then it did not give you the ability to turn off that label or even just like make it so that it's hidden behind like a more or something like that. It had to be displayed. So I was really annoyed by that.
So you never were able to remove that label. It's just that
no, I don't know what it looks like today, if it's still there or not, but it might be. But I very quickly put a little pinned comment that said, I promise this isn't my Canadian fiance that doesn't go to the same school as me.
Exactly.
So that was
that's a perfect example. Exactly. So not all AI is created equal, and
Thanks so much for watching this little chunk of Tech News Weekly. If you'd like to get the full episode, well, head over to twit.tv/TNW. There you'll find buttons you can click or tap to subscribe to the entire show in audio and video formats. Or just look in the description. We've got links down there as well.